Hey, it's Danny from ProjectManaverse.com, and in this video, I'm going to share 5 rules of communication for project managers. Now, first of all, let me say that communication is an essential skill for any project manager. It's a key part, fundamental part of our role. And as project managers, we spend most of our time in some form of communication, be that in our meetings, be it through email or instant messenger, be it giving presentations, whatever it is, we're doing most of our job through communication. So it's really an essential part of our roles. And I've reflected on what elements of communication are really important for us project managers to ensure a successful delivery, to ensure a successful project. And that's what I'm going to go through today. I've distilled it down to 5 rules that apply to project managers. And if you really focus on these rules for communication, you should be fine. So let's jump straight in. So first of all, rule number 1, you need to be sure that you have been understood as a project manager. So when you say something to a group or to someone, an individual, you must ensure that you have been understood, because if they don't fully understand you, that can have some pretty significant consequences on your project. You need to make sure you're understood, so the person that's doing the thing you told them is doing the right thing, because as a project manager, you're in control of all the milestones, you're in control of all the resources to deliver those milestones. So you are assigning the task. So you need to make sure the people doing those tasks really understand what you want them to do, because if they don't, they can go and do something and it could be the wrong thing. And worst case scenario, or best case scenario, you just have to redo that thing and waste time. Worst case, they just do it and you don't find out till way down the line that it's been wrong, and that's going to cause problems and have an impact on chain reaction to many other deliverables and parts of the project that you're going to have to deal with and have a big headache for later on. So it's really important that you make sure you're understood. That's rule number 1. Various ways you can do that. Number 1, the easiest, the most straightforward way and the most important one is just to get them to confirm it, get them to repeat back to you. When you tell them something, just say, right, so what are we doing? Get them to confirm back, or just ask them, can you just confirm back to me exactly what you think you're doing, so we can just make sure we're on the right page. That's one way. Another way is just write minutes out or an email confirmation once you've had the discussion, send that out. Another way is to, if you want to take it a bit further, just make sure that your team members are always reading the minutes that you send out. And if there's something that's not quite right about them or they disagree with, just make sure they come back to you and say that, and just almost make that like a rule of your project, a ways of working for your project team members, that they have to read your team minutes, or sorry, your meeting minutes. And if they don't understand something, or if they see something that's not quite right, or they disagree with it, they must let you know. Otherwise, you're going to assume that it's all right. So that's one way of doing it. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, and just one more tip, just to summarize what you talked about at the end of your meeting. So if you've given a bunch of tasks to people, or you've given a bunch of instructions, or you've said we're going to do this, at the end of that meeting, just summarize those key things so people you can make sure, an extra control to make sure people have understood you. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is to be sure that you have understood something as a project manager, especially on these technical projects. Sometimes there can be a technical discussion going on, you're on a call, it's your meeting, but the technical guys start having a chat and getting into it. It can be hard to follow, because as a project manager, you don't have to know all the technical details. You just sort of have to know at high level. So you need to do your best to make sure you understand and follow along. So make sure that you reflect back to them and say, okay, thanks guys, right, let me just see if I got this right, and just summarize high level what you think they've just been talking about. And they will say, yes, you got it right, or no, you haven't quite got it right, it's actually this. So just make sure that you are understanding as well. And again, the other rules apply. So you can send out your meeting minutes, because that is a good summary of your thinking of how you've interpreted what has been said. Send that out. And again, same rules apply. If your team members read those minutes and they don't agree with something, they can let you know that you haven't quite got it right. So those are the first 2 rules, and those are probably the most important rules. Make sure people have understood you, and make sure you have understood as well. If you get those 2 right, you're pretty much 80% there. Okay, rule number 3 is to communicate as a project manager a sense of urgency. Now, this is the place where a lot of project managers fall down and don't have successful deliveries or are on time to budget. It's because they don't just communicate that sense of urgency. You really need to keep the pressure on, keep the gas on, to get your team members in that same state as you. So those milestones and those activities are always done on time, and you're constantly moving forward and you're constantly applying that pressure. So make sure you're doing that. And there's various ways you can do it. The best way is to make sure you have a plan on a page, and on that plan on a page, you've got your critical path clearly highlighted. So these are the key milestones that we cannot slip on, because if we do, it's going to push every subsequent milestone on that critical path to the right, and ultimately our go live date is going to slip to the right. We don't want that. So make sure you're communicating your critical path clearly. And I do it on my weekly project working group. I always bring up the plan on a page. It's nice and easy to understand. It's all clear. It looks nice. You've got your critical path highlighted there, and just talk through it. And again, talk about, right, we've got these key milestones coming up, guys. We've got to make sure we're going to hit them. Have we got everything ready to achieve that? Any risks to it? Are we all good? Same thing with a 2-week look ahead. Is a very useful tool. Get your one page, a 2-week look ahead. What are the key activities, deliverables, milestones that need to be done in the next 2 weeks? Make sure you're going that with your team every week, and make sure you're just keeping that pressure on. Have daily meetings and just have that. Don't be too relaxed and laid back about your plan and your milestones. This is important. You need to be really communicating that through your body language, through your voice tone, through your response to people when they say that things aren't going to be done on time. It's like, well, guys, we need to, this is a critical milestone. It's on the plan. So why have we not been preparing for this? You can challenge back and don't just take it if there's risks ahead or people have been a bit slack with their deliverables. You have to keep that pressure on. Okay, that was rule number 3. Communicate a sense of urgency. Rule number 4 is be approachable. Be approachable as a project manager, because you want to create that safe environment for your team members. I just said you need to create a sense of urgency, but you don't have to be a tyrant about it. You don't have to create this horrible fear atmosphere, which I've seen on many projects with some leaders. You have your morning stand-ups and it's just a terrible sense of energy in the air, and people are scared to really say what they think, and there's just no fun. So make sure you're very approachable, and there's various ways to do that. Number 1, if someone comes up to your desk and you're in the middle of something, even if it's really important and you don't want to be distracted, just make sure that you look like you're very happy to see them, even if you're not. Like it's an old friend you haven't seen for a long time. Go, oh, James, yep, what can I do for you? Be open with your body language, smile, and make them feel like they're the priority in that moment in your time. If you're really, really busy and you haven't got time to talk to them, you can still do that, but just say, hi, James, how's it going? Look, I'm just in the middle of something right now, but I appreciate you've got something on your mind. So let's catch up in a couple of hours and we can go through it. But just don't have that irritated, distracted look on your face if someone comes up to you and you're in the middle of something. That's not being approachable as a project manager. You want to be approachable. So if you can communicate that in your body language, in your voice tone, in your facial expressions at all time, then that is going to be really important. Okay, rule number 5 is you must communicate the project vision to your team members constantly. Okay, communicate the project vision. So what do I mean by vision? I don't mean like the woo-woo kind of vision of, this is the kind of final promised land outcome. I'm talking about some kind of tangible vision, and the easiest way I find to do that is through your plan on a page and your scope on a page. Those 2 key documents, if you make them look very nice and they're very clear, bring them up in your project working group every week so everyone is very clear on what the scope is, what are we actually delivering, what are we trying to achieve. Review it every week, review any tweaks or changes, and your plan on a page. How are we actually going to get there? What's the plan to do that? Those 2 documents are so powerful on so many levels, and I can't stress, I always talk about these 2 things, but I can't stress how important those 2 documents are for a successful project delivery. If you just did those 2 things and reviewed them every week and kept on top of it, you would massively increase your chances of a successful delivery. As a project manager, you must communicate the project vision, and the best thing you have, the closest thing you have to a project vision is those 2 documents. If you have something else like I don't know what you could use. Technical projects are hard because it's pixels on the screen, right? So it's hard to get a vision for that. But if you can get like some screenshots of how it's going to look, that could work. But I find the best thing is the project scope on a page. What are you actually delivering? Break it down into a visual representation and your project plan on a page as key milestones, because that provides clarity to your team in terms of what you're doing. and it provides confidence that you have a plan to get there. And as long as you follow all the steps on the plan and you hit all those critical path milestones, there's no reason why you can't make it. You reinforce that with that sense of urgency, and you push forward, you're approachable, you make sure you're being understood and people understand you. Those 5 ingredients of communication, if you do those, you'll be fine as a project manager. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and until tomorrow, please take care.